What would 2x our current growth? What would unlock more resources? What would 10x our growth ratio? All those questions basically are answering two things. How can we grow faster? How can we add more value to our clients who are paying you to do so? The better your questions, the more valuable you are as a founder. So we're back. This episode is about AI native companies. What does it mean? And how do we connect it to our previous discussions around early stage founders who want to exceed the 1 million to 2 million annual recurring revenue zone and going for like 20 million, 50 million, 100 million annual recurring revenue? Potentially in SF, it would be like a billion, 10 billion. How do you go on to this growth machine that adds so much value into the market that their value explodes and multiplies and not only increase incrementally like services, consulting businesses? In the previous one, we left things with the early stage founder operating system. We had that idea of you need a shared common reality of a map. How are you navigating that map with your business? How accurate is the map and how much visibility do you have navigating the map? The analogy of the car, you're driving blindfolded versus you see blurry and then you kind of know where you want to go, but it's not clear, so you might not be sure about the best path. All of those are around the map and navigating it. As you improve these, what we've learned was that you can detect patterns, utilize them, and create them. You exceed that phase of early stage of 1 million to 2 million annual recurring revenue. So I like to call it like the very early stage because you can have these numbers and you can have an agency or consulting company that does that, but to exceed those numbers to multipliers, that's where you need blueprints and you need to be methodical and strategic about these with processes and people system, etc. And without those blueprints, so what I call the 5 ICP clients, so that's very specific for maybe more of B2B SaaS, but it's basically 5 clients that pay you market price, that you're delivering amazing value, and the accounts are growing, meaning that they give you more and more money for more of your services and the value that you're generating for them, which makes you in the end more valuable. But also those 5 clients teaches you what your value is so that you can create patterns that will allow you to multiply your growth and not just grow linearly, incrementally. Okay. So then we connected this concept. You have different types of revenue, and then you have the learning engine and the decision engine. So you want to increase the learning velocity, the learning quality on this system 1, and on the system 2, you want to increase the decision system, directly impacting the resource allocation of which hypothesis do we have that we can validate the fastest so that we can learn the fastest and improve our decision making, which will compound our growth revenue and everything that we need to learn to grow into the market we're in and evolve the strategies around the value that we want to add. All of that is in a context of a supposed AI bubble. So you have many conversations going on. There is an AI bubble, AI and agents. Where is the revenue? It adds chaos, but the actual value is not clear for some. I mean, to me, it's extremely clear and extremely efficient. But with all the conversations that I had, it kind of felt to me that the AI native company definition was not really clear or maybe adopted by some. So that's the new piece of this week, and it has 6 parts, and it's a very detailed guide, but we're going to cover a few core concepts around it. First, to connect on the AI native company, what I would like to do is, you're here, you have those systems, and you're building something from scratch as an early stage person, which gives you a unique edge of competitiveness compared to existing bigger companies because they already have a lot of system in place and an existing culture. And we all know changing culture in a company is extremely hard, especially when you're someone like Google, for example. And even though that might not be the best case because even though Google are slow, we have seen Google slowly going to the number 1 spot of the lab, but also everything that's related to infra and all the kind of partnerships and acquisition and models that they're shipping, they're on the number 1 seat easily. It took them some time, but they're definitely winning the AI race from my perspective right now. Coming back to the AI native company and the whole point of this. An AI native company is something that is culture and system oriented and not about productivity tools. I want to start drawing that concept. This is not about tools productivity, even though it adds you productivity, but it's not about this. It's about system and it's about culture. And we will come back to like the decision engine and learning engine, but it's very connected. So I think that in the first thing, the tool adoption, not system redesign, that's one of the core statements of the first part of that article. Context lives in people's head. It dies when they leave the room. Your team is debating whether AI is ready. You've already lost. So if you hear these kind of discussions, I would seriously consider having more discussions and more training, especially for bigger companies. The training part is very important at this stage to have strong adoption and rebuilding the systems, the underlying systems that generate decisions. You might be familiar with concepts like data lake or like advanced data systems, especially in bigger companies. And what's interesting around that is that you kind of see departments siloed. Some things are happening in sales and other things are happening. So I'll just map a few departments here so that it's more visual. But to take the previous episode departments, we're going to take sales, product. We're also going to take engineering, and we're going to create customer. Maybe customer is a part of product. You can build this however you want. So those are the 4 hats from this article that I want to discuss. And this is just for simplicity, but you can extend this to more hats. So you have legal, finance, marketing, etc. Sales and marketing can combine, etc., etc. So the whole point of that, and by the end of this episode, we will have like a motion, a high level understanding of how all the information is coming in and coming out can match a better understanding of your actual mission, ICP, strategy, feedbacks, learnings that you're getting week over week, month over month. But I will get to the essence of the skeleton of an AI native company and why it's a culture and system shift compared to what we knew so far. There is in this article a quote, "No human in the loop." And that's something that's so not well interpreted from my perspective. I don't know why there is such a fear of people losing jobs. It almost upsets me. And I understand why there is definitely a labor shift happening, but there's also so many opportunities that are being created that I do not understand that debate. And to some extent, I do. I know that when you have a skill set that is threatened by this and you don't have the time or resources to increase that skill set, it's a different setup, but that's for another conversation. So what I say here in No Human in the Loop, in the AI native company is a sentient company, is before AI, you had humans attend sales call, manual summarize, manually share, manually synthesize patterns, manually update strategy. Great. And like that pattern, you can create it for everything, for product engineering, sales, legal, finance. You basically have things happening, smart people in between who try to juggle with the limited context that they have and make sense of it with their brain and update a strategy that might or might not be approved, that might or might not conflict with another leader strategy in the same company, and voila. So now is the AI native, and it's a super simple example, but I think it reflects the underlying idea of new systems and culture. You have the same things happening. Humans are still the inputs and outputs and taking the decisions and doing that. But we took the heavy lifting of empowering them to take better decisions and better allocate resources with less efforts, more accuracy on what are the next bets for the company. So for example, to surpass that 2 million annual recurring revenue bar and showing consistently to investors that you're a multiplier and that you're growing at this rate, etc., etc. So the AI native version of that is AI attends sales calls, automatically summarizes, automatically shares, automatically detect patterns, surfaces recommendations, humans decide strategy. The human job shifts from data processor to strategic decision maker. And I think that's underappreciated because if you take that and you connect it to that second point in some way, this is, I think, something that is not appreciated enough, but that actually represent what AI native means. You have the same processes happening, but more accuracy, more certainty, better pattern identification. And now your goal becomes to understand core concepts, core ideas, core experiments that you're running and move faster, smarter, with better people. When I say better people, I don't mean replace the current people, but with empowered people to take better decisions and also have a better understanding. If you have salespeople with limited view on customer, limited view on product, and no view on engineering, they will see a path forward that will be different from engineering with somewhat an understanding of product, somewhat an understanding of customer, and no understanding of sales. And so you can see how this ends up in not the best optimum decision. Now you have people and leaders with full holistic access to that. If we connect this to our system of week over week, monthly leading indicator, what you can control versus lagging indicator, and what your revenue is doing, and the reality answers of what you're putting in every week and every month. Now, if you apply that same system of those people, but now they are interconnected, so they all have context from each other, you can build an engine that really improve week over week, month over month, that creates full observability from every leader, that can answer any question, that can, on a weekly basis, summarize all the things that happen and the actions that happen into a few key metrics, which are maybe volume or some percentages. For example, how many sales calls did we had, and what were the more common patterns that happen in those sales calls? How many revenue did we generate? How many objections did we face from the actual product and the service that we're asking? Or what would need to happen for us to make a deal with a specific client? All of those are signals happening that salespeople need to translate to other departments so that this information is being taken care of when we're designing the engine and the weekly meeting systems, monthly meeting systems, so that we can better adjust where we are versus where our clients that corresponds to our mission and ICP, what do they need basically? So where we are versus what do they need from all this signal. And that's just a small piece of the signal that comes from sales. So if we start building that engine, I will create maybe the clients. So that's our clients and that's our leads. So leads and salespeople are together. We have leads coming in and salespeople are managing them. And so those leads can become clients. They don't have to, but they can become clients. So now, because they're clients, we're going to say that we have the customer here. Maybe it's product, maybe it's not. So now you have those. What's happening here definitely has an impact there. And now maybe you have product that is between the customer and between the sales. And maybe you will do engineering that directly connects with product. You can have variations of that, right? But my main point is to connect things. Those clients and this customer, I would call that a specific box on its own, which has signals. So now we're going to create the boxes that generate very important signal. I don't know if I want to name it right now. Let's do this one. That's another signal that is very important. Another one that also is very important is this one. What are those signals? Why is this AI native? That's easy. All the things that happen here and all the things that happen there, and same for product calls and engineering, because to create a map, to create the most accurate map possible, you need to create a formula. And so your formula is map equal sales signals multiplied with client signals correlated with product engineering signals. That gives you a sense of the map. So maybe you have weights, maybe you have matrices here, and those matrices, those weights, those variables, those inputs come in the machine. So now you have I guess I would call it the decision-making engine. So now to have our decision-making engine, we have the all most relevant inputs. We connect that to the most important learnings we are looking to validate plus metrics. I will give a specific example now. That is just one direction though, and most important signal. Once we have the most important learnings we are looking to validate, plus the metrics that we're validating them against, we can search for patterns and what actually happened, and that we will connect it to reflect, identify patterns, then utilize patterns for next batch of assumptions and strategy. Iterate experiments, and this is how you grow over the 10 million. This is how you go from 2 million to 20 million to 200 million to 2 billion in 2 years. So that's the simple map. Now let's put something on top of this, because I go in depth in that article. I mentioned about the 4 hats. So you have like the sales hat with example here, the product one here, engineering one here. You have more examples and depth from this article. But what we're going to do is we're going to share a real example here. Then how can you currently evaluate where you are in terms of AI nativeness in your current company, whether you're a startup or a corp or whatever? Anything that I might want to do, why doesn't this kill human jobs, but actually this system needs more input? So I will connect all of those, and then we will be done for today and today's session. Also, let me know what would be like the most accurate map formula that you can think of, taking that idea and pushing it with all the variables that you can imagine from like a company and signal and stuff. That would be fun. Example, almost relevant input, volume of calls, all the things that are being mentioned, all the contradictions or pushbacks that clients gives in sales calls, the actual numbers of average time it takes for us to convert one person into our first offering and growing that account. So you have all these metrics of growth for acquiring clients and growing them based on what you're doing. The second one is, what are the most important learning we are looking to validate with these metrics? So from this, I mentioned the sales metrics and inputs, but the same applies for like all the transcripts of every single user calls that you had or client calls that you had, where you discussed roadmaps, priorities. Are they happy with what they're getting? Is there something that they need? Are they missing some value? All these little signals can actually be abstracted every week automatically by just pulling from all the transcripts and creating a weekly and monthly report. And those reports, now just with sales and clients, but also with the product and the engineering and what's on the roadmap and what's not, you just merge that information, give it to an AI, and it gives you a report. And you also give it the mission and the ICP of what you're trying to achieve and your hypothesis and what you're trying to validate. And you do that dynamically every week or every month. Now you will just get back so much more ideas and options, and you can exchange with that partner that has the same pieces that you have, the same context, but it's not only the AI, it could even be ChatGPT or Gemini, and you just literally drop all of that into a prompt and start a discussion like that. Like I'm not speaking about anything complex here. I'm just speaking about the core idea that all the most important people in your company have access to that information so that they can better see the patterns and not be biased or like maybe overfitting, to keep a machine learning concept. So like overfitting in a way that they don't have the holistic vision. So they're picking a solution that doesn't best serve the company is what I'm trying to say. With all these inputs from those people, now you start combining them. Now you have another layer of reality. And that's not a database. That's not something fancy. In one input, have a holistic understanding of everything. That's your context engine, V1, kind of. Context system V1. That can be like the first step. And then you can easily see how you can feed more context every week, every month with more pieces of the business that are actually very important to make decisions and allocate resources. Now that you have that and you have your strategy and what you're trying to operate from. So for example, now we're doing 40 sales calls of a specific thing and using Phantom to do connections on LinkedIn. We track percentages compared to how much do you think we can convert in a specific amount of time, a specific number of clients to a specific offering that we have, tracking, reflecting on all the objections, understanding from the current clients and their profiles and their specificities of each businesses that we work with. What are the patterns again? What are the conversations going around? What should we speak more of, less of with our clients, with our customers, with our leads, sales calls? All of this goes into finding patterns. Once you've identified patterns yourself or with an AI or both, because the AI will give you ideas and then you can reflect and think of things that are not in the context of the AI, but that also click for you or generate more ideas for you. Then you can reflect and identify those patterns and you can start doing more intelligent bets. And not only you, because let's say you're the CEO or the CTO or any like leader, operations, whatever. You can do this exercise, but you can also have your head of sales doing the same exercise, also with product and engineering context through their lens. And so now it becomes a more interesting big picture from all the leaders in a company because they all take into account other context, even though it's not their expertise, and they still see the world and reality through their lens, but with maybe a partner that have a better, more accurate understanding of what's going on in other pieces of the puzzle, if that makes sense. From this, you can utilize patterns. You can iterate on experiments and strategies. Maybe this is a quarter level doc. Maybe if it's very, very early, it's a monthly doc. And that's how you create those multipliers. That is how you create the map. And that is how you create the blueprint. And that is how you create those folds, which are different than like incremental growth. Or like you're growing faster than what an incremental growth is, but you're not at the multiplier level. That is the core idea. Here in that article, I talk about a framework to assess how AI native are you. So pre-AI, no AI tools. The team is against AI. The manual processes everywhere. They are not using ChatGPT on a daily basis. You get the picture. Then you have personal adoption, self-explanatory. Then you have systematic adoption. So like that's where it starts to be interesting. People are sharing transcripts, putting them in tools, extracting patterns and context from the reps that are going on. There are week over week, months over week systems. And now it becomes 80%, 100% tier where you have integrated systems, things happening on their own, events triggered just by the AIs themselves. And they go, they pick the inputs, they move them, they send updates, they update strategies, they ask questions, they might talk to clients. A lot of things possible. You have AI employees that are literally acting as employees, meaning that they have a holistic understanding of things. They do things on a daily basis. They ask questions. They build systems. They fight entropy actively, but they also participate in the mission in ICP. Maybe they participate in calls. They already do on the upper tiers, but I'm curious to hear like what does AI employees mean to you and what does 100% feels from your perspective. So yeah, take that assessment and tell me where you are on that assessment or where do you think that your company is. The last point that I want to make is why this doesn't kill human jobs. It requires more vision. So AI amplifies opinions. If you don't have opinions, you have nothing to amplify. What opinionated actually means. And that's where I want to do my wrap up. You know what great looks like, not the AI. So to be very specific here, if I go there and I amplify sales strategy, but the sales strategy is not doing any scripts, not following any patterns, not attacking a specific ICP, not being aggressive with the strategy and the options that we have, doesn't have that founder experience that is very good at sales and scaling sales and sales teams and hiring, etc. Knowing what great looks like, knowing when to hire more people, handling client calls versus more volume versus implementing systems to be more efficient around sales overall. If that doesn't exist, if you don't have a leader that can do that, deliver on this, then AI is not going to do anything because this is where opinions matters. AI is going to do more of something that you're already doing. So it's going to accelerate the motion, accelerate the learnings, accelerate the knowledge sharing and context sharing. But if you don't have the people who knows what they're doing and why they're doing it, if you don't have the hypothesis, what do we want to see happening this week, this month? If we don't know what needs to happen, if we don't know what the experiment success would be, then we're not going anywhere. So same example for clients. If we're not asking the right questions, if we're not talking enough to clients, if we don't have enough people supporting the actual value that we're delivering and making sure that we're tracking the right metrics weeks over weeks, months over months for adoption per account of what we've built, the value they get out of it, quantifying it. If this is not happening, it doesn't matter. That context system is useless. But now if you have someone that is very serious about sales, that is building a very outstanding team in sales, and same for like the customer center leader of your company, and same for like how do you merge these two plus the mission and ICP of the company and working hand by hand with the CEO to develop further the current state of the product and the future roadmap and what are we going to prioritize and what not, to the person who is focused on the velocity of how do we actually get everything that we need so that this vision is coherent and makes total sense and will give us the fastest results and validation from our hypothesis that will put us in a very clear path to getting more and more of a multiplier and like a company engine then this becomes gold. This becomes like an AI employee, where what great looks like here is when people are looking forward, like excited, actually getting dopamine from seeing what the system is going to see from all that context. That's the underlayer of the entire company. It has transparency, observability. Of course, you need to be mindful as you develop that. There are complexities to having a system like that, but it is quite a big shift in how you run a company. And this is why early stage companies and AI native companies built from day one have unique competitive advantage against bigger corporations that needs to go through a cultural change, convincing people to adopt that. If you're very early stage, you can just hire the people who are convinced about it and just build that system day one, starting with the sales and product engineering thing and clients, of course. That is why, to me, this is so fun, so exciting. What humans do in AI native companies, they set the vision and constraints, they define what great looks like, they make strategic decisions with 10x more context, even though like you're the sales leader or the client facing leader. You don't have to understand everything about the product and the engineering, but you can get this information fast, and it's also embedded on when you generate your own report. It's not just you reporting to your CEO or other execs in a shared meeting. It's also unlocking a better, clearer perspective of things, even though you don't have those skill sets or you're not an expert on those areas that you're getting input from. But it can create analogies and reflect with your own strategy. And as a leader in that company, whatever your pillar is and what you're focusing on, you can be more aligned with everyone else and the company's mission more dynamically. So the water going through the pipes, water being like all the information, pipes connecting all the important pieces of the business to maximize growth. The water flows more and more at a higher speed in those pipes because you have such transparency and observability and feeding those systems and building more and more of those information flows that just makes the company kind of sentient. That is like the core idea. So make strategies, decisions with 10x more context, course correct when system drift, triggers, hey, this is happening. Hey, we got that. This is a pattern I've seen. What should we do about this? What do we think about that? People can start giving their views and we can merge that, have an opinion as a company level. That's very underrated, but ask better questions. The better your questions, the more valuable you are as a founder. And that has a direct correlation to the revenue stage you are in your company, from my perspective. So adopt that framework. I would love to hear what you think about it, if it needs to be more hands-on, if you have questions. You have a lot of more notes and depth into the article. What do you want to do more of, less of? What beliefs do we hold that are wrong? What would 2x or current growth? What would unlock more resources? What would 10x or growth ratio? All these questions basically are answering two things. How can we grow faster? So how can we add more value to our clients who are paying you to do so? And put yourself on that framework, share your notes, ideas, questions, and I look forward to the next one. This one was very fun. Thank you very much. See you. Ciao.